have a deep lineup now. Gene Segura hits 8th for this team. Bryson Stott's a good player buster. He can hit. He hit 7th for this team. But Harper is the man in the middle of the order. He had 419 in the postseason. He's got 5 homers, 11 RBIs, 11 extra base hits, and 11 hits to the opposite field. And that cannon shot last night. He just tore a hole in the sky in a situation where you just say to yourself, this is where Bryce Harper is supposed to hit a 2-run homer and take his team to the World Series, and then he did.
Tim Kurkjian covers baseball for ESPN. Tim, how you doing this morning?
Well, I'm well, Buster. I'm a little surprised we're done after 4 and 5 games, but it's the beauty of postseason baseball. October's like no other month, and it has been a raucous month, to say the least.
Yeah, a lot of surprises, and I think in one case, not a surprise at all. And look, we're going to get to the aftermath with the Yankees, which is going to be a big topic this week, I think, in the baseball media, because of Aaron Judge's status, because we don't know how Steinbrenner will react to this quick exit for the Yankees. But I always feel like you got to give credit to the teams that move on. Let's start with the Philadelphia Phillies. Look, they essentially, coming into this postseason, they were the 12th seed, right? This was a team that I think at the outset of the postseason, I'm sure nobody picked in our group at ESPN to move on to go to the World Series. What's going on? What's happened?
Well, something's going on there, Buster. I saw it during the Braves series. I saw them 4 straight games, and some things are starting to happen there. Ground balls going right to Jake Cronenworth of the Padres, hits the bag and goes into center field. My dad used to tell me that when things start to happen, weird things start to happen to a team, you have to start to pay attention. Maybe something is going on there. Maybe the baseball gods have something to do with this. And that is the case with the Phillies. I love being around that team. The camaraderie is tremendous. They've fixed the bullpen. They've fixed the defense. And they've got the best hitter in baseball, at least right now, in the middle of the order in Bryce Harper. I really like the way that team plays. They play for the manager. They all love him. I'm not suggesting they're going to beat the Astros, but I'm not surprised they beat the Padres, and I shouldn't even have been surprised they beat the Braves. Not with the way they've been playing so far, and not with the energy and the atmosphere they have in their home ballpark. It is tremendous.
So maybe the moment we should have known something was going on. Remember when Nick Castellanos made that incredible sliding catch down in Atlanta? You're like, there's no way he catch that. Oh my God, he caught it. And that's right. It feels like we've seen that time and again with them in this postseason.
Yes, there have been multiple moments where you just kind of shake your head and go, okay, I need to pay attention here because something special is going on. And it is. A team that won 87 games is going to the World Series. And sorry for all those who think it's bad that 87 goes. I think it's good for the game that 87 goes to the World Series. It just speaks again to the ultimate beauty of the game is its mystery, its unpredictability. Things like this, 12 seed cannot beat the Warriors, cannot beat Jordan's Bulls in the playoffs. They can't. But this is what happens in baseball, and I think it's glorious that it does.
All right, I want to break down the Phillies in terms of 2 units that they have. One with their offense. This is what we expected, right? This is what Dave Dombrowski expected when he signed Schwarber, he signed Nick Castellanos. He thought teams all year were going to bludgeon other clubs, and that really didn't come together until this October. And you know, Bryce Harper is that good. Like, this is the Bryce Harper that we've known, who's evolved and now has all this experience, that incredible plate appearance last night. That's who the Phillies, we thought they were going to be in terms of their offense.
Right, and they have a deep lineup now. Gene Segura hits 8th for this team. Bryson Stott's a good player buster. He can hit. He hit 7th for this team. But Harper is the man in the middle of the order. He had 419 in the postseason. He's got 5 homers, 11 RBIs, 11 extra base hits, and 11 hits to the opposite field. And that cannon shot last night. He just tore a hole in the sky in a situation where you just say to yourself, this is where Bryce Harper is supposed to hit a 2-run homer and take his team to the World Series, and then he did. I mean, that just doesn't happen very often, but it's just another reminder he is an elite player. He has been his entire career, and last night was the biggest moment of his career, the biggest home run of his career, and one of the greatest home run / moments in the history of the Phillies.
So you remember when Bryce Harper was 15 years old, he's on the cover of Sports Illustrated. It felt like that Scott Boras, we knew Scott Boras was going to represent him from the time he was like 12, right? We talked a lot about his potential free agency, leaving the Nationals, service time. If you had told me Bryce Harper would be at the heart and soul of another franchise the way that he is, the Phillies, after becoming a free agent, I would have laughed. No way. But to see the way he's embraced this city and the way the city's embraced him is really cool.
Yeah, I'll never forget that Davey Johnson told me once that he went to Bryce Harper early on in Harper's career and said, Bryce, look, man, you're great, and I don't want to take any aggressiveness away from you, but you have to start to enjoy playing the game a little bit more. Meaning his intensity was so high that every out just crushed him. I'm telling you, Buster, he is a different guy. I had several long chats with him during the postseason, and he is so relaxed about who he is and where he is that it was no surprise that he did what he did last night. And go look at that replay again. Instead of like screaming and yelling all the way to first base and then getting to the dugout and celebrating like a 15-year-old should have, he was the most mature guy on the field, just to say, almost as if to say to his teammates, that was what I was supposed to do. That is why they brought me here. And I think that scene during and after that home run kind of personifies who Bryce Harper is and why the Phillies are in such good shape with him as the team leader and the guy in the middle of the order.
And another big reason why, I think maybe the biggest reason why the Phillies have ascended in this postseason is that bullpen. You touched on it. You know, they were 23rd out of 30 teams in ERA during the regular season, but we've seen this time and again with bullpens. I mentioned in the past in the podcast, the Washington Nationals in 2019, they were terrible in the first half for a lot of the season with their bullpen. And they got to October, and Daniel Hudson and others, they were terrific. I look at what the bullpen is doing for the Phillies now, Tim. That to me is the biggest surprise. What do you think?
There's no doubt. Jose Alvarado, for instance, has been overpowering, sinker at 100 miles an hour. And Brian Snitker, the Braves manager, told me during that series, he's the difference in that team. He wasn't this good in May, but he is now, and he is a devastating force late in the game. Sir Anthony Dominguez, going into yesterday when he gave up a hit and gave up a run, had faced 22 batters in the postseason, retired 20 of them, 13 via strikeout, and was throwing 100 miles an hour again. And, you know, Zach Eflin has given them somebody else to go to late in games. And David Robertson got an out last night he needed. And then Ranger Suarez came in, a starting pitcher who has no heartbeat whatsoever, meaning he's the calmest guy of all time, and got the final 2 outs on 2 pitches. That Philadelphia bullpen is the biggest reason that they are where they are, because they weren't expected to be this good, and now they are.
All right. Congratulations to the Phillies. They are the nationally representative in the World Series, and they will face the Houston Astros, Tim, who absolutely dominated the Yankees series. You know, there's so much written today in New York, so much conversation about what's wrong with the Yankees. Tim, I didn't even think these two teams were close going into the series, and the gap between them felt like it was even greater than we thought. What did you see?
Yeah, they played a couple of close games, but there's no doubt that the Astros are demonstrably better right now than the Yankees, and it's all because of their pitching, Buster. Look, we're in a pitching-rich era, but it is absurd how good the pitching is for the Astros. They don't have one average pitcher on their team. Every one of them is above average. They held the Yankees to a 162 average and struck out 50 batters in 4 games. They struck out 35% of the Yankee hitters. The bullpen is as good as the rotation, and it's a spectacular rotation. The bullpen had 42 strikeouts in 33 innings in the postseason. They don't even have a left-hander in the bullpen, and it doesn't matter because Ryan Presley comes out throwing that slider and that curveball spinning everything, and nobody can hit him. They can't hit Abreu. They can't hit half the guys in that bullpen. It is so impressive. And for the Astros to be undefeated in the postseason with, until last night, Yordan Alvarez really hadn't done a whole lot other than the walk-off homer and what he did last night. Jose Altuve had an 0 for 25. The depth of that lineup, the depth of that pitching is just breathtaking to watch.
And the left side of the infield, Alex Bregman, since opposing managers began to look at Yordan Alvarez as somebody they didn't want to, mess with, and they began to pitch around him, Alex Bregman has fully taken advantage of it. He's absolutely stepped up. And how about Jeremy Pena? You and I have talked about all the turnover with the Astros through the years, from 2015, Jeremy Pena being the latest example of it. They move on from Carlos Correa, who's arguably the best shortstop in baseball now. And Jeremy Pena comes in. He's not only does he hold down the position defensively, but boy, he's been difference making offensively in this postseason.
Yeah, we knew he was going to be fine defensively. I was told he was ready 2 years ago to play shortstop defensively in the big leagues, but I don't think anybody saw this kind of production coming. He hit the 18th inning homer to beat the Mariners, and then he won the LCS MVP because of the 3-run homer he hit last night, which of course was the biggest hit of that game because it got the Astros back in it. He is poised. He is calm. I can't believe he's just a rookie with the way he's played. And now we're going to the World Series, Buster, with 2 rookie shortstops. This is, again, just another reason why baseball is so good.
You got to pick for the World Series? You're going to pick the Astros, right? You have to pick the Astros.
I have to pick the Astros. They haven't lost yet, and their pitching is tremendous, and they have 4 home games to 3 for the Phillies. But I have to tell you one more time, there is something going on in Philadelphia. I have seen it up close. I have seen it from a distance. Do not underestimate the Phillies, but my goodness, that Houston pitching is sensational.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned the fans either, right? With the crowd
and
how crazy that is. To hear the players talk about how they feel like that was eventually, inevitably going to manifest in the Padres series is pretty cool.
Right.
All right. Let's talk about what's to come for the New York Yankees. I was on Get Up this morning and they asked me, what I thought was going to happen. Is Aaron Boone going to get fired? Brian Cashman, what's going to happen with Aaron Judge? Tim, I do think that there's going to be a postseason failure tax that Hal Steinbrenner, the owner of the Yankees, is going to have to pay. I don't think it'll be with Aaron Boone. I know this. They think he's a good manager. They just won 99 games. And, in full disclosure, we, of course, worked with Aaron Boone. I worked with him on Sunday Night Baseball. There certainly were moments during the postseason, as he acknowledged in his press conference before Game 4, that you can have an argument whether or not he should have gone to Loaizaga after he took Garrett Cole out in Game 3. But the bottom line is, I don't think that Aaron Boone wasn't not the difference between the Yankees winning or losing that series or getting blown out for that matter.
Yeah, I agree. The Astros are just better than the Yankees, and Aaron Boone didn't have much to do with that at all, and I don't think he will be or should be fired. However, they have a lot of work to do on that team, because if you're the Yankees, just winning the division again isn't good enough. If you can't beat the Astros, who just eliminated them for the 4th time, you have to find a way to beat the Astros, and I'm just not sure you're going to beat them with the team that you have now. So you got to re-sign Judge somehow, some way, not going to be easy. And then you got to make some decisions. Who's our second baseman? Who's our shortstop? Who's our third baseman? Who are we going to play in center field every day? I think they got to get Benintendi, LeMahieu back, healthy. Their pitching is fine, but they have a lot of work to do to get to the level of the Astros, and it's going to take a big offseason to make that change.
Yeah, and I think where the tax that I mentioned, the postseason failure tax, is going to manifest is in the judge negotiations. We know that the Yankees, really since George Steinbrenner moved out of power, they haven't gone in fully flex their muscles financially necessarily in bidding for players. I think this is a case where they need to take the gloves off and do whatever it takes with Aaron Judge. And go to a place where they're not comfortable. They were comfortable with a 7-year, $213.5 million offer. Does that mean that they're going to push it to an 8th year? Does that mean they're going to make him the highest paid position player, give him, just a shade over what Mike Trout is making? Yeah, I think they have to do that. And I think they also have to assess some of the, questionable issues in their lineup, like Josh Donaldson. He's an older player. If they were to move on from him, it would be expensive, but I think it's a fair question to ask, what is he going to give them going forward? And do they go and spend big to try to match what Steve Cohen is doing leading the Mets? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I thought, Buster, that the best scenario for the Yankees to get Judge back was to win the World Series. He wins the MVP, and then they would have no choice but to bring him back for whatever he wanted. But maybe I looked at that the wrong way. Maybe this is the scenario. You get
Right.
wiped out by the Astros. You look at your team and you say, we're not going to make the playoffs next year if we don't have Aaron Judge on our team. So maybe the failure of the team to some degree in the postseason is why the Yankees will now say, all right, we can't win anything without him. So we got to give him whatever he wants. I think that's where they are right now. And I don't think they're going to have much of a choice.
There's no doubt that this offseason, if Aaron Judge wants to be with another team, there's going to be an opportunity for that. There's going to be an opportunity for another owner to jump in and make a massive offer. But I can tell you this, when you speak with executives of other teams, they don't think it's going to happen. They think Judge will re-sign with the Yankees. What about you?
Yeah, look, the Giants need him badly. The Cubs have some money. They need him. A bunch of teams could use him. Steve Cohen would love to take him away. But I listened to Judge last night for about 10 minutes in his post-game comments, and he didn't really have a tell of any kind. But I think I can't tell what's going to happen here. But my guess is if the Yankees make an effort to bring him back, I think he's going to end up going back there. But we're going to be talking about this every day, Buster, for the next month and a half, at least.
A nice season for the San Diego Padres. They reached the National League Championship Series. I don't think their offseason's that complicated. I think you basically bring back the team that you have, yes?
Yeah, the team you have is very good. That pitching staff is great. That bullpen is great. And once they get Tatis Jr. back at some point next year, I think they'll be even better. Soto a full year. They're a good team. They just got beaten by a better team in the Phillies in the way that they played, but there's no glaring weakness on the Padres. They're a bat short, I think, and maybe that's Tatis Jr. when he comes back, and so we'll see. But I don't think a whole lot needs to be done with the Padres. They're a good team, good manager going forward.
And I don't think there's a lot of pressure on them to sign Soto right away. He's 2 years from free agency. You go into next year, you try to win. The one thing I would say about Fernando Tatis Jr., I feel like the Padres, given everything that's gone on with him, the fact that he missed the entire 2022 season between the injuries and the PED suspension, is going to miss the first quarter of 2023. They're in a position, Tim, in a way that I don't think they ever have been, where they can basically say, look, you're playing the outfield when you come back. And you need to prepare for that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, look, Sun-Young Kim did a really nice job at shortstop, defensively, certainly. And I think they could use an everyday center fielder. I'm not sure Trent Grisham is the guy that's going to take you to the next levels. He went 0 for 19 in the NLCS. So yeah, I think I've thought all along that someday Tatis is going to be moved to the outfield. A couple Padre people have told me that along the way, and maybe that's how you restart with him. Is you say, all right, we're starting over, we're bringing you back, and you're going to play center field for us.
Yeah, they had started those conversations, as you know, before the PED suspension, where he was preparing to play at least some outfield maybe even the majority of the time is outfield with some shortstop. I think now going forward, that the conversations will center around him going to the outfield. The other day, the Texas Rangers sent out a press release. Bruce Bochy is going to be their manager going forward. I'm really happy for him. I've known him forever, Tim, as you know. He was the third base coach of the Padres when I started covering Major League Baseball. I played in a rec league with him, basketball. He loves the fact that I can remember that he could shoot really well. He may have been almost as good a shooter as you, Tim, from 12 to 15 feet. So, that's what he does well on the basketball court. As a manager, I get why Chris Young, who knows him well, would want to jump on it and hire him.
Yes, he's a Hall of Fame manager. He's just going to have to delay now his induction to the Hall of Fame because he's coming back. I think it's great for baseball, and I think it's really great for the Rangers. And look, Bruce Bochy is not in the mindset to come back and finish in fourth place in the American League West. He's coming back to win, and I'm pretty sure that after all the money they spent to get Seager and Simeon, now they're going to go out and get two pitchers, if not more, because Bruce Bochy's not going to come back and handle a bad pitching staff. His ultimate strength is nobody, but nobody handles a bullpen better than him. I think they'll spend the money. I think they'll upgrade their pitching, and I think they'll be a contender next year because I think Bruce Bochy is that good of a manager, and I think offensively this team is pretty good. They just need to add some pitching, which the money they have to spend, I think they should and they will.
The Giants were incredibly respectful, I think, to Boch on his way out, but it was also clear they wanted to move on, and they were ready to move on at the time that they did. And now, as you say, with the Rangers, the focus is going to be on adding pitching. Two names to watch: Carlos Rodon and Jacob deGrom. Does that make sense?
Yes, of course. And those two guys would change anybody's roster, but it would be a significant change for the Rangers. It would make them beyond a solid contender if they were to add both of those guys, which seems unlikely. But with the money they have, and remember, Chris Young is a former player. Chris Young loves Bruce Bochy, and he's going to let him manage the team and run the game. And that's why Bruce Bochy is coming back. We don't let our veteran managers or any of our managers do that enough these days, in my mind. The Rangers are going to let Bruce Bochy manage them, and that's the way it should be.
Last one, Terry Francona announces he's going to be back as the Cleveland Guardians manager. I got to tell you, there were times during the course of this year when I wondered if that was actually going to be the case. What about you?
Yeah, I wonder, and I always worry about Tito's health. But I'm so glad he's coming back. And I don't care how corny it sounds. He's good for the game. The game needs him. We have 8 managers now, 60 years old or older. I think it's great for the game. I think there's the experience in the dugout is really important, and nobody deals with people and communicates with players better than Tito. I think he's the manager of the year in the American League, and that's really saying something given the jobs that were done in Seattle, Baltimore, other places. But I think he did the best managerial job in the American League this year, and I'm so glad for the Guardians and for him that he's coming back.
All right, Tim. Well, good to talk with you. I'll see you down in Houston.
All right, Buster, take care.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.